The number one mistake that I see parents make in travel baseball is this. They think the solution to their problem is somewhere out there in a post, out there in a travel baseball program, out there in something that a coach is going to say to you, maybe a trainer, somebody who trained a big leaguer, a coach who coached a big leaguer, and make you feel like they have all the answers. Some showcase that you think is going to change everything. I understand why it's heavy. The travel baseball system, the $40 billion ecosystem that now everybody's living in, it conditions you to think that way as a family, that the solution is in going to this one particular camp or joining this one travel ball program or playing for this one coach. There's a lot of social media content out there that is pushing this narrative that we have all the solutions. The problem though is all of it reinforces a promise that if you do that one thing, all will be right in the world. The reason you feel this pressure and this anxiety is you ultimately don't want to make a mistake. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Most Valuable Agent. It's Monday, which means it's a solo episode. And if you tuned in last Wednesday, you heard a very special episode with someone who, well, she knows me more and better than anybody else, and that is my wife, Tara. Now, in this interview and in this episode, I don't even want to call it an interview, but in this episode, we pulled back the curtain, not just on what I do as an agent, but also on why I do it. We talked about the values behind the business, what makes an agent good, actually good, things that I've seen over and over again across 25 years with working with families in the business is also something that we peeled back the curtain on. And it's this last part, that last one, what I've seen over and over again across 25 years of working with families in baseball that I really want to drill into today. So the number one mistake that I see parents make in travel baseball is this. They think the solution to their problem is somewhere out there in a post, out there in a travel baseball program, out there in something that a coach is going to say to you, maybe a trainer, somebody who trained a big leaguer, a coach who coached a big leaguer, who may talk really eloquently and articulately and make you feel like they have all the answers. Some showcase that you think is going to change everything. And I think the thing and the reason why I want to talk about this is, first off, I understand why this is so hard. I understand why it's heavy. The system, the travel baseball system, the $40 billion ecosystem that now everybody's living in, it conditions you to think that way as a family, that the solution is in going to this one particular camp, right? Or joining this one travel ball program, or playing for this one coach, going to this one college camp. There's a lot of social media content out there that is pushing this narrative that we have all the solutions. The problem though is all of it reinforces a promise that if you do that one thing, all will be right in the world. And it preys on a level of uncertainty that as a parent, you feel navigating for the first time. And really the reason you feel this pressure and this anxiety is you ultimately don't want to make a mistake. Now, with this podcast, I talk to parents every single day, right? I read your comments. You guys send me messages. I read your DMs. And I see the frustration. I feel it. You can sense it in the words that you guys are, sharing with me as far as outlining your problems. The reality is like the world that you guys are navigating, it isn't just hard, it's confusing. There's way too many voices, right? There's way too many promises, and there really isn't enough honesty and reinforcement that you're a lot more powerful than you think. So naturally, when you hit this wall with your son's development or with his exposure or lack of exposure, or with his confidence level or lack of confidence, your mind as a mom or a dad, it does what psychologists will call typical thinking or like linear thinking. And what that means is you accept the first thought that shows up in your brain and you take it as true. Not because it is true, but because it would feel so good if it were true. So it's easier just to accept it as so. An example of that is, well, if this instructor that trains all of these major league players, if he's doing it, he must be the guy, right? We have to go to him. If this travel team has the most D1 commits, I want my son to get a D1 scholarship, so we have to play for this one particular travel team. If I just figure out the right path, if I figure out the right timeline of things, if I find the right guy, my son is going to make it. So the linear thinking, the typical thinking that I'm referring to, it's A plus B equals C. And that way of thinking, it's seductive in a sense. And here's the real danger with thinking that way. When you do that, you stop thinking critically and you stop evaluating things properly. And most importantly, you stop trusting yourself. Now, I want to tell you something that I wish every family really grasped and understood. Me as an agent, right? I have a ton of experience. I have a lot of the answers that I would say that you families ultimately need, right? Real answers based on obviously the years of experience, but also I've done $300 million contracts, right? I've guided top high school players, college players through the draft. I've represented all-stars. I've represented gold glove winners, MVPs. I've sat and negotiated with GMs. Have I won an arbitration case for my client? Yes, I have. But even with all of that, my answers that I'm going to give you, my solutions, they're only going to matter if you can run them through your family's lens. Okay, so I want to say that again because it's that important. My guidance, and anyone else's for that matter, is only as valuable as your ability to run it through your own reality. Your kid, your family, your values, your time, your financial situation, your son's mental makeup, his physical tools, his emotional bandwidth, really all of it. You, mom and dad, you are the filter. You are the foundation, the secret sauce, so to speak. And in order for the value of the advice to be received properly, you must first accept that exact thing. And here's the deal. If you guys do, there's a massive power shift internally and externally that are going to happen for you. Okay. And I know that may feel different. You guys may think, well, that sounds harder. But think about this. If you guys outsource all of your agency, and I don't mean sports agency, I mean your ability to think for yourself. If you outsource all that to somebody else, this industry is built to make you think that they're going to solve all your problems. But in reality, it's lacking the most important thing, which is your filter. So right now, here's the reality of kind of what's going on internally for you, if I could just describe it. And maybe I've already done a good job of it, but I feel like it's important to kind of beat this into your guys' head, so to speak. So a lot of you feel like you're chasing something that you can't quite put your hands on, can't quite grab. There's some roadmap, there's some coach, there's some team. It's just out of reach. And this is where the anxiety comes in. But the reason it feels that way, it's not because you're without something. It's not because you're missing a resource. It's because you haven't realized you are the resource, right? You're not missing a formula. You're missing a belief in your own decision-making ability. So what I'd like to do is let me give you a real world analogy and maybe this will make sense for you. So on draft day, I don't show up, pick up the phone, and call a scouting director and say, here's the one player that you have to take with this one pick. What I do is I say, here's what I know about this player. Here's why I think he fits well into your system. And when I talk to the parent or the player, I say, here's what you need to weigh when making your decision. Here's what the signability represents. Here's the potential developmental path. Here's the organizational depth. Here is their offer. And then let's talk about the window of opportunity to capitalize on all of this. Right now, what I just did is I'm not giving you generic advice. I'm giving you context. And that's exactly what parents, you guys need to start doing for yourselves. Stop looking for someone to drop you a solution in your lap, thinking that it's just this magic plan or magic pill, and start realizing that the solution, it rests with you understanding that you're one of the most important parts of it, right? So start asking questions like, what do we actually value in this journey? What is my son? What is he ready for? What is he ready for physically? What is he ready for mentally? What is he ready for emotionally? And those things change. So if you are so caught up in wanting to do something that someone is telling you, well, that person's son or the player that they had go through that experience is someone totally different physically, different mentally, different emotionally. Also ask yourself, what are we as a family trying to build over the next 6 to 12 months? That could look different than some other player that you're focused on, right? What trade-offs are we willing to make? How much money are we willing to invest? How do we analyze if something is worth it unless you understand what the trade-offs are? What comes to mind for me and how I think this could help is start looking at yourself like you're the CEO of your family's plan. Okay. And if you can do that and you can look at this through that lens, everything else will start to shift. Okay. You'll start to see advice that you're given as good or bad advice. You'll start to see how the advice that you're given actually fits into your strategy. And that's when the exposure that we oftentimes talk about on this podcast, that exposure that you're seeking for your son, that's when it actually becomes useful and leverage, really. That's when the development becomes intentional now. We're going to choose to bypass this event. And instead, we're going to do this developmental plan. And it's with intention. It's by design. So let me close with this. You guys, mom and dad, if you're frustrated, I just want you to know you guys are not alone. But the way forward, it's not to scroll on YouTube or Instagram harder or to commit to spending much more money. It's really to flip it around and to go inward, zoom out a little bit and reframe what you're dealing with, reframe the problem and understand this. The answer isn't out there. It's in here, right? In how you process, in how you lead, in how you help your son build the proper plan. Because at the end of the day, no one, not me, not anybody that you're meeting out there in the travel baseball world, no one is more qualified to lead your son's journey than you are. Okay. Now, am I going to be here to help guide you every step of the way? Absolutely. But the steering wheel, so to speak, that's yours. That doesn't mean you have all the answers, but it does mean that the answers that you're seeking, when you receive them finally for the first time, you can actually see it for what they are, right? You can analyze, is this good advice? Should we actually follow this? Or are we missing something for us to be able to analyze and make a proper decision for me and my son's journey here, right? So ultimately, you're not the problem. You're actually the solution. And my job, what this podcast exists for, is to help you see it, to help you trust it, and to help you live it. Because your son, he is counting on it. So thanks for listening, guys. I'll see you next week.